Yes. That's what I heard. Yeah, do something. That's great. Oh.
Yeah, that's what I feel like. I'm going to a picnic. It's my picnic shirt.
That springy feeling.
Yeah. Finally, warmed up to start.
Oh, isn't that nice? I fell down for the first time yesterday, but it wasn't there.
Right, Mona, how are you? Good, very good. Thank you. Oh. You're back.
Yeah, it was such a nice time.
Yeah. Yeah, yesterday.
Yes, yes.
I know, oh, I don't want to see. Okay. Anyway, yes, I'm here. Yeah, yes, yes.
And then, yeah, figure it out from there.
Okay, grab a seat. We're getting ready to start. Fasten your seatbelts. It's not going to be a bumpy ride, it's going to be a fun ride. Good morning. Maybe I better turn my hearing aids up, I didn't hear anything. Good morning. Now I have to turn them down. That's good. Welcome. This is Althea. If you didn't know that, you're probably also in the right place. So, just a reminder to turn off your cell phone, or at least turn it on silent, because if it does go off, we will confiscate it, and there is a very heavy payment you have to pay to get it back. So we make lots of money that way. It's a good thing. So we start off every week usually doing what we call a land acknowledgement. So we just remind ourselves that this land where we are sitting and holding this service was originally inhabited by indigenous people from different tribes, the Ute, the Arapaho, and the Cheyenne. And so we just acknowledge that this land was and is sacred land for those indigenous people, and we can remember and remind ourselves that it allows us to feel even more connection and more sacred as we sit here in this incredible building on this ancient land. We also like to remind ourselves as a way of growing that we are really making a conscious effort at increasing our diversity. And that's not something that's always easy, but I think if we all just keep that in our mind, that we are open to diversity, we are actively seeking diversity, not just because it's PC, but because that's the way we learn and grow, by having people around us who are different than we are, and learning about their lives and sharing our lives with them so we can kind of come together in more unity the more diverse we are. So we are open to that. Not only are we open to it, but we are seeking it in every way that we can imagine. So we ask for everyone's help, and if anyone has suggestions about how we can increase diversity, please let us know. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is our altar. Every week, rain or shine, sleet or snow, Barbara Vale is here setting up this altar in the front. And it is there to kind of help us even create a more sacred space. She does a little smudging to cleanse the atmosphere. And she also is very intentional about objects that she places on the altar. And we haven't talked about this for a while, but we welcome anyone to put an object up there during the service, just to kind of have a connection with that. And it can be a diamond ring, or a Rolex watch, or a rock. And usually we don't keep those things, but we let you take them back after the service. But it's just one more way that you can kind of make a physical connection with what's going on in this space. So just reminding you and to thank Barbara for doing that every week. I always appreciate it. And it's really interesting to go up after the service and just take a look at it, see what's on there. Just look at the altar and think about it again. Okay, next on the agenda is welcoming anyone that might be here for the first time. Is there anyone who is here today for the first time? If you would wave your hand. We have a flower for you as a way of welcoming you. And the flower will kind of let us recognize you after the service. So we have some nice dark red flowers. Thank you. We also, welcome. Also, after service, we have a lunch in the dining hall that way. And we would invite any newcomers to join us for lunch and get to know us better. And if you wave your flower when you walk in the lunchroom, you get in free today. And if you can't make it today, try it. You can get in free the next time you come. So please join us and sit with us and chat with us and eat with us. And we would love to get to know you. So now it's time for our opening prayer. And Dick Peterson is going to lead us in that.
Just a couple things before we get started. It's so delightful to see the children's area. It's just as kind of nice to see it. It's people that they are part of us, which is the way that I like. And I don't think over the years I haven't liked children crying in church and all of that because it's all part of who we are. So I want to thank that. And the other nice thing is that I know that we're climbing together a little more. So we're not as afraid of the virus as we have been in the past. So I'm taking a couple statements out of this little book, Studies in Divine Science. It was published in 1909 to get a perspective of the age of this group that we're part of, which I sometimes feel sad that we're not really studying what is divine science. And these have been through the science of mind classes at Mile High, but we haven't been through the science, divine science, which this community is about. So with that, let us bow our heads in prayer, however you comfortable. I am calm, strong and serene. I am joyous, fearless and free. All that I am is eternal God. The Lord my God in the midst of me is mighty. Life full and free is flowing through me now. My body is the temple of the living God. It is filled with grace and truth. In substance and spirit, eternal and changeless. I feel the truth, and that makes me free. And so it is. Amen.
Good morning. Please rise as you're able and join me in Althea's statement being followed by this prayer. God is all, both invisible and visible. One presence, one mind, one power is all. This one that is all is perfect life, perfect love, and perfect substance. We are individualized expressions of God and are ever one with this perfect life, perfect love, and perfect substance. You are the face of God.
and say something. Throughout the month of February, we will be honoring Black History Month. Each Sunday, we will share the biography of a local influential person from the Black community. And before I go on with the rest of the reading, I want to say just one small thing, in that when I was growing up, watching the movies, a hero was, a man who was strong and had guns and was, physically fit and kicked butt and used violence and to take out the other, right? And it never sat right with me. I never understood it, because to me, a real hero is somebody who's gentle, somebody who stands up for right, somebody who's scared, not fearless, but scared, but still standing up for what they believe in. And in that gentle way of peacefulness and nonviolence, it's not easy. I always thought a hero, it took so much more to not fight and to be peaceful and to say, hey, this isn't right, this has to change, but let's do this in a peaceful way. And I think that's incredibly challenging. And during this whole month, I'm honored that all these people stood up when they knew that they were going to get shot down. They stood up for what they believed in, and I love them. I've never met them, and I'm proud of them. And I think that they say the wheels of justice turn very slowly, and I agree with that. It's very frustrating, but I think we owe it to all the people who stood up and got shot down and stood up again. I think we owe it to them to be good people, to have hope, to not give up hope, or forgive ourselves when we do give up hope, but get it back. And I really feel together we can all eventually someday be equal, and I think it's important for us to all do this in our own little ways, or our own big ways, to make this world a better place, and to honor them who did that. And I'm not going to do this without crying, I can tell you right now. I'm going to read this. We will also donate $150 of each Sunday's contributions, basket or dip jar or online, to the nonprofit suggested by next week's speaker, Christina Lon Jones. The nonprofit is called Make a Chess Move, and each week we will tell you more about this phenomenal organization. Make a Chess Move teaches Black youth the game of chess, during school, in after-school programs, and during breaks, to teach critical thinking and social-emotional coping skills. Make a Chess Move is brilliantly creative and simple, but has a significant impact for at-risk youth. In our Denver History Spotlight today is Julia Greeley, known as Denver's Angel of Charity. Julia Greeley was born into slavery in Hannibal, Missouri, sometime between 1833 and 1848. While she was still a young child, a slave master, in the course of beating her mother, cut Julia's right eye with his whip and destroyed it. Freed by Missouri's Emancipation Act in 1865, Julia subsequently earned her keep by serving white families, mostly in the Denver area. Whatever she did not need for herself, Julia spent assisting poor families in her neighborhood. When her own resources were inadequate, she begged for food, fuel, and clothing for the needy. One writer later called her a one-person St. Vincent de Paul Society. To avoid embarrassing the people she helped, Julia did most of her charitable work under cover of night through dark alleys with her trademark Little Red Wagon in tow. Julia entered the Catholic Church at Sacred Heart Parish in Denver in 1880 and was an outstanding supporter of all that the parish had to offer. Every month she visited on foot every fire station in Denver and delivered literature of the Sacred Heart League to the firefighters, Catholics and non-Catholics alike. Julia died at St. Joseph Hospital, Denver on June 7, 1918. Buried at Mount Olivet Cemetery. As part of the cause for canonization, Julia's mortal remains were transferred to Denver's Cathedral Basilica of the Immaculate Conception on June 7, 2017. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. It's really great to hear stories like that. That helps us with a feeling of connection. So, another connection we have today is with our featured musician. I'm always excited when he's here because I never have any idea what this guy's going to do. But it's always amazing. It's always heart-opening, eye-opening, ear-opening. And it's almost always something I've never heard before and that I never knew a bass instrument could do. So today we have Gonzalo Tepa. He's a jazz and classical musician, bass player, composer, educator, and a two-time Latin Grammy nominee for Best Traditional Pop Vocal Music and Best Latin Jazz Album, and for works on the recording of Tiempo by Linda Briseño and Third Element by Luisito Quintero. He was named Best Jazz Soloist by Downbeat Magazine in 2004, 2005, and 2006. He received the Best Jazz Soloist Award at the Greeley Jazz Festival in 2004 and 2005, and has performed with Wynton Marsalis, Jeff Kane Watts, Matt Wilson, Ed Simpson, Chris Potter, Tom Harrell, Ron Miles, Art Land, Slide Hampton, Don Byron, Jeremy Pelt, Ben Goldwyn, and others. So please join me in welcoming and get ready for whatever he has. Yeah, I knew that's what he was going to play today. So, What I don't understand is how does he know, how does his mouth know what his finger's going to do? Maybe it's all connected. I don't know. It's a mystery. One of those great life mysteries. Thank you, Gonzalo. So I'm really excited today about our guest speaker. It's taken us, our scheduling guru, Ginny, and Christine, quite a while to make everything mesh so that we could get her here, and she's here. Our guest speaker today is Christine Renee Monks. She is a religious science licensed practitioner, and she's also a ministerial student at Mile High. She's a certified life coach, a transgender activist and public speaker. Since her transition from male to female in 2017, she has found her voice in choral singing and trans advocacy. She's currently sings with the Denver Women's Chorus and with Sage Singers and with the Mile High Center Church Choir. And she serves on the board of trustees at Mile High. She's given numerous Trans 101 talks to groups interested in supporting the transgender community more fully. Her noble purpose is sharing her lifetime gender dysphoria with the world in an authentic and vulnerable manner, promoting compassion and understanding between the cisgender and transgender communities to foster greater empathy and acceptance. That is quite an incredible statement. And so I am really looking forward to experiencing Christine today and look forward to what she has to offer us. So welcome, Christine.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you, Bob. I've got all my crutches here. I've got my iPad and I've got my notes and I think I've got my water bottle. I think I left my glasses in the other room because I don't think I really need those. And if I get desperate, I will let you get for me. Oh, I am really excited to be here today. This is actually my first Sunday talk. So I want to be my first Sunday talk. It's interesting because, oh, look at you, bless you, thank you. The title for my talk is I'll Have What She's Having, which many of you may recognize as being a phrase from the movie When Harry Met Sally. And I'm not going to talk about the movie or the scene where this occurs much, but it's kind of an iconic thing. And the scene takes place in a crowded restaurant with Billy Crystal, who plays Harry, and Meg Ryan, who plays Sally, having a discussion. And during the course of their discussion, Sally displays what I can only describe as unbridled joy and enthusiasm for life. And it is absolutely compelling. And in fact, it's so compelling that the entire restaurant notices their table. And at the end of it, things kind of calm down to normal again. And the waiter walks up to another table, and there's an older lady there, and he asks what she wants. And she kind of glances over to their table and says, I'll have what she's having. And my takeaway from this is that what if every morning we woke up feeling that way about our lives? What if every day we were so excited to see what life had in store for us that anyone who looked at us could see how brightly our light was shining, and they said, I'll have what she's having, or I'll have what he's having, right? Because it's like oftentimes that's not the story we tell about our lives. And so this is what I'm going to do, is talk about this today and come up with what I think are some ways that we can each embody more of this into our own lives. So I'd first like to start with sharing a quote. And we'll see how well I do this. Jason gave me tutoring on it. Oh wow, look at that. That worked out really well. So one of the greatest lessons of life is to learn to be yourself. To have confidence in the high impulses that come to you as an individual, and to know that a power greater than you has willed you to be a little different from all the rest. So this is an Ernest Holmes quote from 1950 from a radio address he delivered called God Wants You to Be Yourself, which I thought was great, and I had the little booklet, and so I thought, well, this is perfect. This will fit right into the talk. And I found another one. This I thought was rather synchronous. And I'm all emotional, so that's why I'm going to keep dabbing my nose, because it works that way. This showed up in my Insight Timer yesterday morning, okay? Because I meditate every morning, and they always have these little phrases, and I thought, well, it's kind of nice, right? The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you really are. And it's like, how many of us don't view our lives like that, right? That it's like drudgery, but it's anything but a privilege to be who we are. So anyway, I thought I'd tee it up with that. So I intend to make 3 points today. I was debating whether I was going to tell you all 3 points at the start. I think I am going to do that, and then I'll come back. Because, I don't know about you, but most of the time, I love what our ministers at Mile High say, and by the time I walk out, I forgot 90% of what they said, right? Even if I really liked it, I don't remember. So the first talking point is be mindful of your self-talk, because your self-talk becomes your experience. And the third point is listen for your guidance. Not listen to it, but listen for it. Because my experience is it speaks softly and it never yells. And the third point is whatever you do, go all in on your life. Don't end your life with a full tank of gas. Right? I mean, it's like, oh my gosh, if I'd known this was the end, I would have driven faster, I would have been bolder, I would have done more exciting things, right? So, anyway, Bob said, I'm Christine Renee Monks. I use the name Renee not to be pretentious, although sometimes I think it comes across that way. But when I was coming up with a new name, I found Renee because I wanted my middle name to start with an R for reasons that I won't go into today because it's not that important. And I thought, I really like Renee. It's really pretty, but I didn't know how to spell it. So I went to Wikipedia, right, where everybody goes when they need information. And I found out how you spell it, and I put the accent over the right character, and I put the correct number of E's to make it the feminine version for it rather than the masculine. And then I found out that it means reborn or rebirth. And I thought, oh my goodness, what a wonderful affirmation from God, Spirit, whatever, that this is Christine reborn. So I embrace that, I embrace how I found it and everything else. So as I think you know, I'm a transgender woman, which means I was assigned male at birth. And I lived most of my life presenting to the world as male. And I use the word presenting because inside me, I never felt like that's who I was. But anatomically, I was male, and I really didn't know any women or girls who looked like I looked. So it didn't seem like it was all that affirming for me to think of myself as female when certainly my parents didn't think that that's who I was at all. So it seemed pretty cut and dry, you know, if you're anatomically a boy, you're a boy, but it was just never that simple for me. And so I don't want to specifically talk about my transition today, but it's part of how I embraced who I am. So it will have certainly bits and pieces, and maybe way more than bits and pieces about it. Because for me to follow my heart, I had to change every aspect of my life. I mean, it's stunning how all in I have gone on this. And it's really rewarding too. I'm not at all, I am so much happier than I ever was. But it's just interesting that it would, my life following my heart wasn't just like, oh, I think I'll have McDonald's for breakfast this morning. That was, my heart had a different story it was taking. So let's talk about the first point. Let's see if I can do that. Be mindful of your self-talk, because your self-talk becomes your experience. I remember feeling like I should have been a girl from the time I was 2 or 3 years old. And in fact, when I was 3, I told my mom God made a mistake. I was supposed to be a girl. And it's so interesting to me how much momentum self-talk like that has. That was a story a really small child made up, that God made a mistake. I don't think I made up the part that I was supposed to be a girl, but that would be a whole other topic, right? But I carried that with me my whole life. That not only had God made a mistake, but I was a mistake. And it was interesting because I even carried it a year after I transitioned to female. And I remember talking with my life coach about it, and she says, is that really true, that God made a mistake, that you should have been born female? And I stopped with it, and I thought, you know, I don't know, probably not. If I'd been born female, I probably wouldn't be up here talking to you today. I probably wouldn't be anywhere near as resilient as a human being. And it would be a totally different life experience. So I changed my story. I was not supposed to be born female. I was supposed to become female. And that's a big distinction, because one is a disempowering story and the other is an empowering story. Because I identified who I was and I became who I was. So I'll just reflect back to you. What is your self-talk like? Are you living the dream? Because if you ask me, how's it going, Christine? I'll say, I am living the dream. This is like better than I ever imagined it would turn out to be. But most of us don't do that. It's like, oh, I'm getting along, yeah, you know, it's like both ways, right? But be careful about that. Because it gains momentum in your life. It becomes your story. It becomes how you experience life. And life might be abjectly different than what you're experiencing it as, but that's what you'll take away from every experience, is that it's not that great. So, this segues nicely, I think, into my second point, which is listen for your guidance. It speaks softly, but never yells. So, what made me decide later in life to decide to live the rest of my life as a woman? Because it's a rather radical decision. And the short story is I turned 60, And I was praying to God, as I understood God to be at the time, to tell me what my life purpose was. Because by most objective measures, I had done pretty well. And yet I felt really empty and I felt really unfulfilled. And so I remember sitting around, I turned 60 in September of 2015, and I remember sitting around that New Year's Eve with some friends, and we were talking about our intentions for 2016 and New Year's resolutions and all that stuff, and everybody was saying what they were doing. And I said, I hope to discover what my life's purpose is. And it was a way more serious New Year's resolution than most of the other people at the table were sharing. And I knew that, but it was okay. Because that was really sincere for where I was. I didn't receive an answer to that prayer immediately, but not too long after that, in 2016, I did receive what I thought was an answer to my prayer, or what I know was, I shouldn't soft pedal that, I know it was an answer to my prayer. And the answer was just be yourself. Now, I gotta tell you, I was super disappointed in this answer. I thought, are you kidding me? This is like divine intelligence, and your answer to this really meaningful question is just be myself. And then I kind of set my ego aside and thought, well, wait a minute. You have never been yourself. You haven't been yourself since your whole life, since somebody told you, no, you're not a girl, you're never going to be a girl. I don't know what to do about that. So I decided that being myself, in light of the fact that I always thought I should have been a girl, I wanted to be a girl, I always longed to be a girl, that maybe that was what this be yourself was all about. And it was so important to me, but I never was vulnerable. I was never willing to be vulnerable enough to tell people about that side of me. And I want to be clear about it. I use the term girl because when I was 2 or 3 years old, that was the difference, right? There were boys and there were girls. There were not men and women or males and females. So out of respect for that younger version of me, I haven't changed it to say I wanted to be a woman, because I don't know that I knew what being a woman was about, but I definitely knew I didn't think I was supposed to be a boy. So that turns out to be why I continue to say I wanted to be a girl. So 2016 turned out to be a big year for me around all of this, because I was still doing life coaching with my life coach, as well as doing some life coaching outside of that. And this whole thing about, my feminine side, as we could call it, kept getting louder and louder. And I thought, in light of this, maybe we ought to look at this. So we came up with an idea. I was doing support for a group of life coaching students. And we decided that I was going to show myself as female, or present my feminine side to the class at an upcoming retreat in Sedona in the fall of 2016. And that was one of the more courageous things I did. I mean, there have been a lot of courageous moments along this journey of mine. But I did decide that I would do that, because I never gone out in public cross-dressed as a woman. It was something that my wife at the time knew about. She knew about it since before we got married, but it never left her bedroom. So this was a bit of a risk. And at that point in time, I also had a full beard, so I thought that probably won't work very well. So I lost the beard. I went shopping with a friend, not my wife, because she was not at all convinced this was a good idea. And bought a wig, bought a dress, bought clothes, had my makeup professionally done, and ventured out in public for the first time as Christine in October. 2 weeks before I was supposed to do the presentation in Sedona, because I figured I probably needed a dry run, right? And it worked out. Spoiler alert, it worked out really well. But that was the first time I actually believed, within my whole circle of possibilities, as you want to call it, that this was possible for me. because throughout my life this seemed impossible. I mean, as I discussed this various times with my mom, it's like, what are you going to do, right? I mean, she was sympathetic, but it's like, what are you going to do? I mean, nobody back in that time was really talking about transitioning. I mean, certainly it wasn't like at all what we're doing now these days. So I'm pretty steeped in the science of mind teachings, and the science of mind embraces a concept called a mental equivalent, okay? So a mental equivalent says before you can manifest a physical reality in your life, you have to be able to form a mental picture of what that looks like. So in order for me to be seen as a woman, in order for me to be a woman, I had to be able to embrace and believe that I was a woman and I could be a woman. So the whole law about mental equivalence is a little more complicated than that, but that's kind of the essence of the whole thing. So my work was to not only want that, but see it as a possibility and believe that it was possible. That was the shift in my consciousness that I had to make. So I'll just, again, point that out to you. If you want to change in your life, saying you want it to be different isn't anywhere near as effective as to owning it and saying, I can see myself being this person or doing this thing that I've always wanted to do. Because that's where the change happens. So, I'm going to wrap up what I want to talk to you about the second point, but if I look at my guidance, it was quiet and it was personal. And you could argue that just be yourself didn't mean what I thought it meant, but I knew what it meant. It resonated with me at the core of my being the minute that came into my consciousness. So I think that's how Spirit speaks to us, is quietly and in ways that we understand, not billboards on Spear Avenue or anything like that. You know, it's like something smaller. So my third and final point is, let's see if I can make this work well. Whatever you do, go all in. Don't reach the end of your life with a full tank of gas. And I've got two quotes I found that I think support this. Maybe not. Oh, this one, yeah. You don't have a right to the cards you believe you should have been dealt. You have an obligation to play the hell out of the cards you're holding. Yeah. It inspired me the first time I saw that. And the second one is from Carolyn Mace, and it says, you really want to look back on your life and see how wonderful it could have been had you not been afraid to live it. Right? I mean, how often does fear stop us from doing what we really want to do? Fear of looking stupid, fear of being laughed at, fear of, I don't know, whatever, right? So, I started taking the first Science of Mind foundational course called Beyond Limits in January of 2017. I did do my presentation, it went exceedingly well down in Sedona, and then in the beginning of 2017, I had to decide whether I was willing to blow up my life as I knew it to become Christine. So I enrolled in the class called Beyond Limits at Mount High. Again, it's the foundational class for all of their religious science teachings. And I began that class presenting as my male self. But halfway through the class, I had made the decision that I was going to be Christine for the rest of my life. And so I changed my name tag and I presented as Christine from that point forward. I decided to start seeing a gender therapist, someone who specialized in this, because what I didn't know about transitioning far exceeded what I did know. I began cross-hormone therapy. I began presenting full-time as female. And then I had to tell everybody in my life that who they thought they knew me as was perhaps not as authentic a representation as they were led to believe. I mean, transitioning, as I see it, is a mental, it's a legal, it's an emotional, and a physical journey. I mean, most people think about the physical part, right? I transitioned, oh, you had surgery. Well, not really. No, that's not really what it was about. So the physical aspect of it can be important, but it's not universally part of everyone's journey. The emotional part of it and the relational part of it is really a big part of it. I mean, first of all, I had bought all new clothes, right? I mean, I had some good clothes as a man. So I had to buy all new clothes. It's hard to credibly present as a woman if you weren't socialized as a woman. I mean, there's so many secrets about being a woman that my mom never had that talk with me. She was having another talk, like, no, you're not a girl, you're not a girl. So even though I say this like in one sentence, like it was some neat little checkbox I checked, transition, start presenting full time, start hormones, this was a huge, huge thing to do. And it had lots of nuances. It had, I remember telling one friend that when I told him about it, and I've had more trouble with my former male friends actually accepting this than I did with female friends. He said, so has your whole life been a lie? And I never would have put it that way, but I had to admit that I wasn't living authentically. And that was because I grabbed this part of me in so much shame that I couldn't even bear to take it out and look at it. So I don't want to focus on all the aspects of that. I mean, I had to legally change my name. I had to legally change my gender marker. If you don't know what a gender marker is, that's the little M or the F that you have on virtually every document in the world. And that required an FBI background check. It required it to be fingerprinted. It required a court date before Denver County Court judge, and a letter from my doctor. And then I could change my Social Security card. That was the first step. Change your name, you change your gender on your Social Security, and then everything can ripple forth. I was able to get a new driver's license. I was able to get a new passport. I was able to change my frequent flyer miles with United so I could check in as Christine Renee. You can't believe how many documents you build up in your lifetime, I mean, deeds and transcripts and college records and professional registrations. I mean, it can be daunting to go through and do all that stuff, but you just have to do it. And everybody wants different documentation. I'm also a pilot and a flight instructor, right? So the FAA wanted totally different documentation than the Secretary of State for the passports wanted, right? So it was just, it's interesting. So it's certainly not for the faint of heart. It's not for the, people who kind of think, well, maybe I want to try this. Because that wasn't how I wanted to do it. I didn't want to dress up as a woman on weekends. That wasn't who I was. That was never what this was about. This was about me being my authentic self. So hormones help when you do this transition, but they don't do everything. They don't raise the pitch of your voice so that you sound, female as opposed to sounding male. They don't get rid of any facial hair you developed over the years. So there's a lot of work to do just to physically make it work. And then just figuring out how to be comfortable in your own skin. I worked with a vocal therapist when I first transitioned. I've been taking voice lessons to work on my singing. And I'm happy to report that when I first transitioned, I was singing with the alto section, with the tenor section, which is the higher of the male voices. And now I sing with the altos, so it works out better for me. And I've raised the upper limit of my voice range far beyond anything I ever could have expected. So anyway, let me conclude with a couple of thoughts. My life has been immensely better since my transition. I do live my life more authentically and more vulnerably. I mean, I couldn't even imagine having told anybody about my secret desire, and now it's like in neon lights above my head, right? And I'm willing to talk to people about it. Because I decided if I came to this world to be a teacher, I couldn't be mad at everybody for being ignorant about the subject I came to teach, right? I mean, that seems counterproductive. So, one of my goals, I had 3 goals when I transitioned. I didn't want to die with no one knowing who I really was. And I've achieved that goal, because this is who I really am. I also wanted to find my voice, was one of the words I used. And I never believed it would be my singing voice. I was a singer in high school, but after that, I didn't sing for all those years. And then I found the courage to try out for Mount Bay Church Choir as a woman, as a transgender woman. And my choir director said, I've never worked with someone like you before. I don't really know what I'm doing. And I said, well, that's okay, because I don't really know what I'm doing either, you know, making this all up. And then I also wanted to be seen. And there's 2 components of being seen. One is you can't be hiding, which I was hiding for my whole life, so there's no doubt why I wasn't seen. But then someone else has to be willing to see you too. And I've had kind of mixed results with that. I have people who don't want to see me. I have people who don't want to ever see me. And yet I have people who do want to see me and do want to embrace the courageous person that I've turned out to be. So, I hope that you do mind your self-talk. Let me see if I think I have a summary slide with all the bullets. Maybe I don't. But I do hope you mind your self-talk. I do hope that you listen for your guidance, because it's there. And I hope whatever you do, you go all in for it. So I hope when the world asks you to do something, you say yes, yes, yes! And so that anybody who looks at you says, you know, I'll have what she's having. Thank you. I'll give it back to you, Jason.
Christine, you're amazing.
Yeah.
I do want to keep seeing you. Forever. You're beautiful. Thank you so much. I wish my whole family was here. There's a lot of things to learn in this world, and you got it all. Keep it going. Thank you so much. Yeah. Now what? What should I play? What should I play? You know, something like romantic, yeah? Beautiful. Let's try. Let's see what happens. All right. I'm very inspired by Christine's sound. Let's see what happens.
Good morning. One of my friends and longtime teacher, Jane Cobb, was on my mind. And I thought that I'd just do a little bit from her book, one of her books, Your Mind is Like the Sky. One October, many years ago, at the beginning of our second year of marriage, my husband and I, who were then living in Ohio, drove down over the long Columbus Day weekend to Blacksburg, Virginia, to visit a friend. Our friend Paul was in training at a Zen center on Spruce Run Mountain just outside of Blacksburg to become a Zen monk. On the morning after our arrival, we were invited to go for a ride on the mountain with the Rashi, or resident spiritual leader, in an old open Jeep. The Rashi, like us, was a passenger. It was a beautiful, clear day, with the fall reds and yellows of an eastern forest all around us. The Rashi seemed to be in quite a good mood, leaning back in his seat with his left arm draped along the back of the driver's seat, but he wasn't saying much of anything. You can be sure my husband and I weren't saying anything either. A Zen Roshi is a daunting presence. But at a certain point, he put his head back and looked straight up at the blue sky overhead and said in his heavily accented, halting English, "Your mind is like the sky. Where did the clouds come from?" I have never forgotten that question. And further on she says, the first work of affirmative prayer on any chosen subject is to dissolve the clouds into consciousness so that your mind on that subject is like a fair sky. Consciousness is creative. It can affect so-called external and even material reality, but not until and unless it first affects itself. It is when the process of affirmative prayer has succeeded in clearing the skies of our own mind that any so-called external situation can and does change. When we begin on the spiritual path, when we begin to practice affirmative prayer, we begin by drawing on our own mindset about how things ought to be. We use affirmative prayer to change the world. We affirm that things are the way we think they should be. We may spend many years in that stage of practice. It is a pleasant place to be, but it is not as far as it is possible to go. And then, just to lighten it up a little bit, I had the distinct privilege, I was in Istanbul in the fall, and I got to go to a Mevlevi Sema ceremony, which is commonly known as whirling dervishes. And these folks, I mean, it was like when we invite people our service. So I got to witness the whole ceremony. It was just fantastic. And of course, Hafiz and Rumi, they were of the same Sufi sect as these folks are today. It was just a very lovely experience. But so that brings Hafiz to mind. And this is a poem of his. Once a man came to me and spoke for hours about the great visions of God he felt he was having. He asked me for confirmation, saying, "Are these wondrous dreams true?" He looked surprised and said, "No." I replied, "How many ghosts do you have?" He looked surprised and said, "I'm speaking of sublime visions, and you ask about ghosts?" And I spoke again, saying, "Yes, brother, how many do you have?" "Well, Hafiz, I have 62. "And how many wives?" He again looked surprised. He said, 4. I can't imagine. How many rose bushes in your garden? How many children? Are your parents still alive? Do you feed birds in winter? And to all he answered. And then I said, you asked me if you thought your visions were true. I would say that they were if they make you become more human, more kind to every creature and plant that you know.
Alrighty. Now we get to participate in what I like to call the flow of abundance. If we are seeking to call in abundance into our own life, our own experience, then one of the things that's really important to do is to prime the pump, to give. As we give, we receive. And it is not more blessed to give than to receive. It's all a blessing because it's all one thing, giving and receiving. And I know sometimes for some of us, receiving is difficult. Just think of all the times that someone has said, oh, that's a beautiful necklace. And you say, oh, I got it at the swap meet. Or you really have a beautiful voice. Oh, well, you should hear my mother. So we have to be willing to receive as well as willing to give. So this is the time that we get to participate in that giving. So I would ask the ushers to come forth and to pass the basket. There's many ways to give here. You can pop your diamonds, your gold, your silver into the basket, your checks. You can also take a little card, one of those little cards that Christine now has with Christine on it, and just pop it in the little dip jar back there, and you poppity pop. Every time you pop it, $10 is magically transferred to Althea. You can also,
Give extra for a chess move today.
For what?
A chess move, the nonprofit.
Yes.
We're donating to this whole month.
We are donating today too, so maybe you can find it in your heart to give a little extra so that we have a large donation to give as part of our monthly contribution to Black History Month. You can also sign up as a regular giver online. That's what I do. So every week I get an email from my bank saying, you've just contributed to Althea. And I like seeing, sometimes I forget about it. I love seeing that weekly email. So if you would all join together in the affirmation, the universe provides all that I need and all that I give. With great joy, I share my prosperity, planting seeds for a world I am helping to manifest. And so it is. Amen. And now we take a time now to do what we call prayers for the people. And if you have something that you would like prayer support in, Rick sends all these prayer requests out to about 20 people every week who will pray on your behalf with you during the week. So if you have something that you would like to share, something in your life that you would like to increase, something in your life that you would like to shift or change, or if you have a friend and you would like to have us pray on behalf of your friend, now is the time to do it. We have microphones that are coming around, so just raise your hand either way up in the air, or even if you do it like this, I will see you. Lee.
Yes, for a couple of weeks I've been talking about my son, and he went through another crisis. And through this crisis, he was able to really share with me and to be really honest. And now I kind of long to be with him. I wish that we could continue this kind of talking. And so that's what I would like a prayer for, is to be able to share with my son and with people. Thank you.
Thank you. And let's all join together after each request and just say, and so it is. And so it is. Anybody else? Anybody upstairs? I can't really see you because of the spotlight. So you don't have to share right here. You can also go online and click the little prayer request box, and that gets sent out to all of us immediately. So if that's what you would like, it's a good thing to do. And also, if you would like some individual support in your prayer, we have prayer partners available in the library after service. I think today it's Dick and Lee, and they will be there, and you are welcome to go back and sit down with them for a few minutes and tell them what you would like to share, and they will do a very short, beautiful, affirmative prayer, affirming with you what you are requesting. So please take advantage of that. It's as being one of those people that receives the prayers every week, it is really incredible to do the prayer work every morning for all of the prayer requests that come in. Because it's not just about those requests, it's also about those of us who are doing the affirmative prayer. Because that's all about us and what we know, what we believe, and how we can support each one of you by supporting and opening our own beliefs. So it's really a gift, just like your offering, it goes both ways. Dun, dun, dun. Where are we? Prayers of the people. Now we get to hear Jenny. Anuncio Mendes.
Thank you. Hello and happy Sunday. I'm Jenny. Oh, look at all the babies back there. Oh, I love it. They're multiplying. Kiddos and fishes and babies. So I am Jenny Castleberry, and I am part of the team that brings you amazing Sunday speakers and an amazing Sunday experience like Christine Renee Monks. Another round of applause, please. Thank you so much. I was riveted. That is the word that popped into my mind. Thank you. And during this month of Black History, right, we are talking about embracing diversity, celebrating diversity, and the word that came up also was richness, right? The richness of life that you brought, that you decided to do courageously. What a world it would be if we walked out our front doors and whatever your richness and diversity was okay to be there in that space. That is what we are trying to get to, so thank you so much. And don't be confused next Sunday when Christina, we have Christina Long Jones will be with us. She will be our guest speaker next week and has an amazing background. So come hear that. We also then have, Robert Brzezinski, who comes and visits us often, will be speaking the next Sunday. Liliana Barr, who is coming from North Carolina to join us, and many more cool things. We're going to do an Equinox Sunday, because believe it or not, that's coming up in March. So our own Mary Jo Honeyos will lead us in that. What else is going on? The biggest announcement is that we have put it out there, talk about affirmative prayer, into the universe, that we are looking for a spiritual leader. We used to call it a spiritual director. We might still, if the person who takes the role would rather be called that. But that is the person who would be up here most Sundays. And so that was on our website. If you know anyone that will fit that job description, we've tried to make it pretty open. Please share that. If you know anyone, so we're starting that process that is out there in the world. Also, every Sunday, as mentioned, right after we close this ceremony, we have prayer partners behind this wall. Dick and Lee Peterson, go ahead and wave your hands again. There's one of them. Where's the other? Oh, no, they're not sitting apart. We can talk about that next Sunday. Not really, you're allowed to. They're married, if y'all didn't get that one. So, right after service, they will lead you through a personal affirmative prayer. And also immediately after service, we always have a lovely lunch in our dining room, so please join us for that. And then we have a deep dive. So if you enjoyed Christine's message and you want to meet in a small facilitated group with her around 12:30, so you have time to eat and socialize, but then you'll also have time for that, you will get in a smaller group and have a facilitated discussion about the topic that she wants to bring up. So that happens too every Sunday. And then we have yoga that starts at 2 p.m. with our amazing Matthew Quigley, who also is a chef, who also is a musician. You'll see him doing many things in this space. And so at 2 o'clock, he also has a yoga class every Sunday. But that's not the only yoga that takes place in these walls. We also have an integrative yoga with Linda. This is all levels are welcome. It is very energetic. It's every Thursday at 5:30 p.m. to 6:45. So check us out for that. And then we still have options for online folks. For many, many months, into years now, we've been doing an online discussion that is every Thursday at 11 a.m. And it is led by Kathy Humphreys, who's right there. Kathy, if you want to wave, she's here with us in person, but she'll join you on Zoom as well. To wrap up the announcements, we always need volunteer help. We do love when people donate, and I would remind you again, you can donate with a credit card in the back in the dip jar if you want to give a little extra, so we have plenty for what we've pledged for the chess move folks. So no after in the back, you can dip jar it. Anyway, we always need volunteers, so that's the other way that you give back. Sarma, we'll have you wave in the back there. She's the woman to talk to, and we always need help around dining in our lunch, right? So before, during, and after is when we definitely need volunteer help, but there are many other volunteer opportunities. And then last but not least, the Board of Trustees, of which I am a member, and it is so much fun. It's the coolest club to be a part of with Althea. And we are always looking for a couple of other board members because people kind of shift in and out. So if you're interested in serving the community from that leadership perspective, you can talk to, what other board members do I have here today? Woohoo! All right, so any of those folks with their hands up, please talk to them. And I think that's everything. Rick Kitzman, who's not here today, is usually my backup for if I forgot anything. So Bob, anything? Nope, I'm good to go. All right, so thank you all so much. Oh, and I know it is the Super Bowl next Sunday, but how many people understand you can do both? Who understands you can come here and go to your Super Bowl party, right? So that is not an excuse. So we will see you next Sunday, and I will now turn it over to Daryl.
Well, good morning again. Please stand as you're able and join me in our community song this week. What the world needs now is love. What the world needs now is love, sweet love. It's the only thing that there's just too little of. What the world needs now is love, sweet love. No, not just for some, but for everyone. Lord, we don't need another mountain. There are mountains and hillsides enough to climb. There are oceans and rivers enough to cross, enough to last till the end of time. What the world needs now is love, sweet love. It's the only thing that there's just too little of. What the world needs now is love, sweet love. No, not just for some, but for everyone. Lord, we don't need another meadow. There are cornfields and much. Have a great Sunday. And Bob,
Yes, all righty. If you'd like to grab a hand, either virtually or really. It's time to shout out. Something wonderful is happening to me right now.
Something wonderful is happening to me right now.
I'll have what she's having. I have what she's having. I know it. I feel it. And I am it. And so it is.